I was always excited about why we are doing this product, who are we competing with, how are we competing, and the whole product offering, so to say, not just the engineering part and the actual product part, but everything around the product to make it work. Because I have seen, and I was reading a lot of stuff about not always the best product wins. Sometimes you have very so-so product that actually got everything else around the business model, the distribution right, and they managed to be successful. So I was very fascinated about everything beyond also the engineering part. And after I graduated 2010, I met with Vasil, and I was we were discussing. He said, we have this product that we have been struggling there for about 2 years now. They decided to do a whole rewrite of a product. And the product was late, they were, trying to also change the strategy at the time and so on. And he said, I think, it would be really helpful if you, join the team and become a business analyst, which nobody knew what a business analyst was, because there was no other position like a business analyst. So this was the first kind of a product manager position. So it was a business analyst. You need to work with, identify what needs to be built, work with customers, work with, the UX team and so on. And then I actually, after 3-4 months, I started leading the user experience team. So I really enjoyed that part. And this is something I discovered there, that I really enjoy, working with people that are, building the UI. And me having a background as a developer, we are very fast at doing iterations and thinking and aligning on what's possible, what's not possible, and so on. And that kind of a rapid experimentation really got me really into building products. And then obviously that was changed to being product managers. I had a chance 2012 to start one of our first cloud platforms that we were building, which was really a big challenge for Telerik, because Telerik was, very different business model and very different skill set. There were not a lot of, server codes and things like that at the time. Node.js as a technology was just starting, and we built what was called the backend services, an engine where mobile developers can go and build their mobile apps, on which I built the Citizens app, Građanite, that gave us the opportunity to, for me literally, to really build a startup within Telerik, like literally 2 guys, myself and another person, Pavel Iliev, who was kind of the technical, he was like the lead engineer, I was the lead PM, as a pair. And we are still running this model even in Payhawk today. So this kind of a pair between a talented engineer and talented business person who work together with a UX person as a mini pot, 3 people. This is kind of the atoms of every product. So you need to have really these 3 kind of, this triangle working really strongly for you to be able to really iterate and move extremely fast. And if you don't have any of those 3 things, user experience person, a product manager, and a very strong engineer, that doesn't allow you to, to do things. And when I was starting Payhawk, I was really looking on how to do that kind of a setup. The big question was, can we identify the market in which we can build something exciting? Because funny enough, and then can we also raise the capital to get there? Because at the end of the day, 95% of startups die with the product. They don't die because they cannot get the product to work. 95% of them get it to work. The problem is that they stop to exist because they run out of money. So I think what we had was the ingredients on and the playbook on how to build products, and it is the same. Whether you are, first of all, you need to identify the customer. You need to understand the pain points of the customer. Exactly. Whether it is a developer or a finance person, obviously you need to spend a little bit more time to understand how this person is doing his job and so on. But the framework is the same. I think our first initial goal was to really go and speak to 30-40 CFOs and really try to understand, is this the market, is this the opportunity, and so on.
I can only guess these were difficult conversations.
Yeah, no, I mean, Actually, not that much. I mean, because you always go with a clear hypothesis, what you want to test. So you already have context. And you learn with every conversation, with every interaction with somebody. That's kind of a professional of what he does. And you build on it, and at the same time, you're trying to, reverse engineer how the financial services work, how this kind of card issuing, payments market works, what is the regulatory framework, what is the licensing framework, how everything fits together. And the good thing is, if somebody has done it, there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it as well. And that was our thinking. So I think at the end of the day, you need to be a firm believer of the problem you're solving. If you're a firm believer and you are, and that belief comes from you outlining the problem to somebody that has the problem and him agreeing with you, and he not only just nodding and saying yes out of politeness because you offered him $100 Amazon gift card for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
He's like, just yeah, it is, but he needs to get passionate about it. If you don't see the sparkle in his eye, he doesn't get it. This is not a problem we're solving, and unless the person doesn't want to leave the call, you haven't found the problem, and that's extremely important. I think that's the best phase of a startup. This kind of a creativity at the beginning, where you're spending a lot of time. I joke that at the whiteboard, the world is a canvas. You can do whatever you want, and that's your most creative period. And you really need to try to, get as many people as possible excited about what you're doing. You need to see their passion, because this passion is going to give you motivation that this is worth solving. And the more you spend into this, it is, the more benefits you get early on. And then as soon as you say, okay, this is what we're going to do, from then on, it is like all the hard work around getting this idea to actually work. But if your idea fundamentally wasn't that good, wasn't that strong, wasn't that validated, your strategy was not very clear, doesn't matter how you're going to execute it. It has a ceiling and a limit. And I think the other reason why investors are investing so much money in the market in which we are is because they are really seeing that this has a huge market potential. The total addressable market is massive, because a lot of companies, and as we were joking, the previous guest on your podcast just wanted to become a customer and said, yeah, sure, go ahead. Because everybody has the problem, everybody understands the problem. And I think that's the ingenuity about innovation, that you can get it to be so simple, so simple that everybody can understand, and everybody like, why wasn't this built before?
And I think that back then we were actually designing a bunch of other things. That was my first official job, I guess, is what we call pre-press. We were doing designs for a bunch of companies in Bulgaria, and I was working with these guys. I was working for these guys. And they really taught me, a couple of them really taught me, why is it important that things should look good? Why is it important that aesthetics matter? What good looks like? And I think that's where I got a lot of my aesthetics education, is from these two specific people, where I would try to design something and they will completely slash it, and I would try again. And I think that's where it started. And I think that's how I got into the whole design and aesthetic part of our lives, because it's an important part of our lives.
Why is it important? I always wonder this. I mean, I have this.
It gives you purpose.
Yeah.
It gives you purpose, because if you just do things because of what they do or what you do and how they function, this puts you in the whole developer engineering kind of mindset. But it doesn't give pleasure to the people consuming your products. So if you manage to do it in an aesthetically pleasing way, this actually drives people's emotion on a completely different level. And you can still have the same device that does a specific job. You can still have the same piece of software that does the same job. But when it looks good is when your emotions go on a different level. And that gives a whole lot of different purpose to what you do. That's why it's important. I assume that people could still ride their ugly cars, but nobody wants to ride an ugly car anymore. It's no more a matter of a function. Same goes for pretty much any product that you use. It's for a lot of people, it's not important what it looks like. But when they see something that looks better, they prefer it. Everybody wants something that looks better, regardless of the, for some people, the brand is also important, but regardless of where it comes from and so on, if you put an ugly thing next to a beautiful thing, everybody would go for the beautiful thing. It's our nature. All of these guys, they absolutely will kill each other over an argument about a specific feature in a specific product. I was always fascinated by this, and this was kind of a natural progression from us being a two-guy shop to a huge group of people building communities. And it was very natural because this is the way communities in the computer graphics world operate. And it's very interesting. I love it.
By the way, we have this topic quite often also here. We try to speak also very openly about failure. And I was thinking, okay, do you remember a situation where, you were crushed by the community saying that, okay, now this is shit, we don't want it. Something that you built.
On daily basis.
On daily basis. How do you deal with that?
A lot of pills. No, we learn. We learn because initially we were taking this very personally. We were taking all of these comments as an insult to what we've done, being younger. With time, we learned that this is, even though people are aggressive against you specifically, they actually have nothing against you as a person, as an individual. It's always about some specific problem, some specific case in their lives, something that didn't go well for them in the product. And it's never a personal thing, but initially it takes a lot of effort to kind of separate the two, because the guy is saying, Peter, you suck at what you've done, and it takes a moment of time, count to 10 and all of that before you reply. And just divide the personal aggression towards you, because you are currently the carrier of the message and the news to these guys, so they attack you. But then try to analyze it and think about actually what they mean by saying it. And there's always a very distinctive division between the two. Obviously, there were people who actually hate us personally, but it's actually a very small amount of people. I honestly believe it's people, when they insult you, they actually they mean something very, very different. And you meet them in person somewhere in the events across the globe. They're always nice girls and guys who actually mean the best for you. But at that specific moment, something failed for them and they had to take it out on someone, and you were the one to deliver the bad news. So that's...
This is quite often actually the case, that people, tend to, hate or, send this negative attitude to others because they are struggling themselves with something. So it's always good to very human. And always good to approach them with empathy. By the way, I was wondering, because you started first with one product, and then at some point you had like 20 products, and some of them were really, really successful. Who is in charge of the portfolio management, and how do you manage a portfolio of such a growing innovation within the company, and you say, okay, this is the North Star and this is where we're going to go, and we're going to think about innovating and building the products for the next, 5 years. Do you manage the portfolio, or who is doing that?
Yeah, we were doing this together in the beginning. Then Vado took a bigger charge in that. Then years later, we figured out this does not work at all, because we were always perceiving it from a technological perspective, and not from a product and business perspectives. And that's very much behind. But at one point, we started building a product management team that actually now takes care of that.
How do you validate that you have the necessary skills, and how did you treat the skills that you needed but didn't have at the beginning? To do your job well, of course.
Well, actually asking the right questions and the ability to interview, to conduct high quality interviews with customers is actually a very, it's really a skill. Not everybody has it, but that doesn't mean you cannot be trained to do that. So there are certain, let's say, best practices, approaches, even books you can read on how to approach the different a customer interview. Like I said, in my case, I started naturally doing that. that doesn't mean that I didn't improve my skills later on when I heard that there is like a best practices and so on. But I would say to anyone who wants to learn this, there is theory out there. And how do you validate that you acquired the skill? Well, ultimately, you will find out whether you delivered value for the customer. And this is your ultimate validation. So if you delivered the value that initially you thought you could, then this is it. To build the right product, you have to add value to a certain group of customers. So to be able to do that, of course, first you need to know, okay, what group of customers am I going to add value for? So you have to be very specific in defining what exactly group of customers you're aiming for. Secondly, because you defined very well that group of customers, you have to get to know their needs and problems very well. So sometimes initially you have an idea to solve a particular need, but then when you talk to these customers, you find out that this is not that important to them. And maybe they have a bigger problem that they would be more willing to pay for to be solved. In any case, you really need to understand the context of the customer, the need or the problem that you want to solve. And after that, you need to think about the various solutions that could solve that problem. So I would say the first thing is to be always in the shoes of the customer and very much understand their need. Of course, if you come up with the wrong solution, that could be a hiccup after that. So at a later point, when you propose a solution to the customer, again, you need to seek close feedback from them, and this way come to the right solution. But I would say the basis is understanding the customer first.
Yeah, while you were explaining, I was thinking, okay, it seems that this is a position for people with empathy and curiosity.
But more and more outsourcing companies want to develop their own products because they understand the added value for the business from this. So the demand for having such talent is increasing. Separately, as for what we can do to accelerate this development, I guess it again starts from education. So I would say we could and we should open such like courses in universities or even in private academies. There is we have started. I personally helped the Telerik Academy start such a course in product management, which has been a great success so far. And this is a good starting point to have the theoretical knowledge. But then these people will have to be given the opportunity to learn on the job from more experienced, more senior product managers. And I think this gradually will happen. But currently, I can see that most of the companies already are still looking for already developed senior product managers. So we need to start giving a chance to people that we see they have the right attitude and the right base skills, and coupled with some theoretical knowledge to start developing those.
I think being entrepreneurial is a mindset rather than necessarily you having to create your own company. And I think you can be entrepreneurial in any environment and in any shape or form and context that you live in, as long as you have the capability to really objectively impact the lives of others in a positive way, either be by creation of an interesting product or a service, improve something existing, or do some paradigm change in a way that you see fit, and basically have the audacity, I would say, to shape the world around you, whether small or big one, in a way that you want it to be, as long as it's inclined towards improving others' life and bringing real value. Because a lot of I tend to believe that a lot of startups got a little bit confused over time that hyping and over-promising is more important than you actually objectively sitting, drawing the line at the end of the day and seeing through the efforts that I've done today, through the product or the service that I have created, am I objectively improving life conditions and the world around me in the way that I wish to? Or am I a little bit self-delusioning myself about the impact that I'm actually making? And this short-term thinking, reflecting on the teams that you are working with. A lot of teams, they almost consider that if they don't become millionaires overnight, that this is not a business that matters, that this is meaningless effort, and that you should search very fast to the new or the next overhyped company. And I think markets would adjust those things very soon, and people would start to look much more strategically towards businesses who are really impactful and growing because of the value that they bring. Because if you have a business that grows thanks to the value that you are actually building and not thanks to the hype, the chances are that your business long term could grow and become a force to be reckoned with in the industry and become deeply impactful in a way that you wanted it as an architect of this idea.
I can hear the historian speaking here. It's amazing to have this perspective as a business, as a CEO of a company. So thank you for that. You're basically saying that more or less people are glorifying money instead of the product and the impact that it is having. What has been your strategy to attract the right investors to scale EnduroSat? Because it seems to me that people that are in it to get a short-term gain are not, probably you're not interested in such investors as well.
I think having capacity to bring great investors on board is a quality. I think it's a success of your business for sure if you do very big rounds of investments, attracting big investors, because this means that you are really good in presenting your vision and selling it and convincing people who might help you to actually build a sensible business. But I'm more certain that the capital is a part of the resource that you need to actually build the product or the service of a value. And in this case, every time that we had negotiations at EnduroSat thus far, we are always looking at, and I always ask genuinely simple and very traditional questions of, I'm trying to understand from a personal point of view how the investor would really look into the company 3 to 5 years ahead of us. How would he potentially react when we have hard moments? Because every company has hard moments and you need your partners to be strong when the hard moments hit, not when everything is with flying colors and you're like a rocket ship in terms of business. Not always you have the luxury to be arrogant enough to, or so good salesman so that you have the greatest, best investors on the planet lined up to beg you to get to at your door from one side. From the other side, you have to be very careful how you choose partners.
I mean, I never, when I started FindMeCure, at least, I didn't think, oh, I'm now starting a startup. Yay. Like, I'm thinking of, I want to bring value, like in the form of a business, value to patients, value to industry. And I want to build a product, and I want this product to be sustainable and growing, etc. But they teach you on what's the investor world like. And that's super important. And the other thing was they introduce you to investors. And the conversations with investors are super, super valuable. It was a huge challenge for me because it was for the first time to me having such like conversations with investors, and definitely not my way of talking, with the numbers and statistical. I mean, I'm a different type of person, but I had to become a different, similar to investors. And that's a great thing because they taught me how you're supposed to think about your business. Not that you shouldn't be emotional and you shouldn't think about values and missions and stuff. Don't get me wrong. That's also important. But you also have to understand the blood of your business. And the blood of your business is
Funding.
the numbers. Maybe it's not even funding, but the numbers. Like how you need to quantify the value you're creating to someone. Sometimes the value is not even related to money. Sometimes it's something else, but you need to be able to quantify that in one way or another. What bodybuilders say, something that you can't measure, you can't improve. I learned this lesson through a lot of conversations with investors. The North Star, especially at a particular stage of the company, should be the product market fit.
Okay.
If you are getting closer to a product market fit, that will give you a particular sign. You should do this, you should optimize on your, let's say, product market fit. If you're far away from product market fit, then maybe you should think about different directions. Looking at the numbers, also understanding how customers feel about your product, it's important. It's the package. Are people getting excited? How do they speak about you? What else do they have to tell you about? Also be careful how much to listen to your customers, because sometimes, actually in most cases, if you want to innovate in a space, if you just listen to your customers, it will be hard to innovate, let's face it. In most cases, you need to be able to see beyond your customers' words and then understand what they're saying is really relevant for your business, but what else you can bring to these customers that they haven't expected. If you're early on with an idea and you know the market already, and you're very much convinced that the market is there, the need is there, and you just need to get the funding so that you can start building the product, then most likely you're a good fit for an accelerator program.
A couple of recent examples like the Payhole guys, or early examples like Rick or some others. The real thing is, besides our business, which is more system integration services business beside the cybersecurity space, we need definitely product ideas which are becoming reality. And then we need to pair ourselves with these product companies. And then we have a real go-to-market which is coming from here. And this is something that Bulgaria has to get better.
It's very often that when you're trying to do something new, you actually cut off some of these fundamentals. So you start thinking, because the old, let's say, whatever, radio or medium or something that has been done in such a way doesn't work, then everything doesn't work. So what I learned over time is to differentiate between models that are obsolete and that are no longer valid, or let's say terms of doing business, or like some nuances, but to differentiate those type of things from the fundamentals that actually is the way you've been doing business 100 years ago, and it will be the way you'll be doing business 100 years later. So it's the value creation. You know, when you create value for someone, it will never be changed. There will be no business which doesn't create value for its customers, audience, or whatever. So this thing doesn't change.
Oh, that's amazing. It's actually giving you such a unique perspective on the things, because in the startup world we speak a lot about disruption and totally erasing the old, which is not true. You just need to understand where is the value creation still happening.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Totally. It was very, very eye-opening for me to see this because exactly like you say, you just draw the line and you say the world starts from today. But it never does. It never does.
And stay tuned. We're coming back. And if you are just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere.